Hey everyone, what's going on? How are you? You good? Good. Today we're learning here at Babylon Talmud, Daf Pei Aleph, Daf 81. Well, what can I tell you about Daf Pei Aleph? Remember the third parak of Brachos? It's kind of like that. So, yeah, I didn't even really write so much down for introduction because, actually I didn't write anything down for introduction. Basically, we're just talking about going to the bathroom for the whole daf, so I didn't really go into too much detail, so I'll let the Gemara go into detail for us. So, here we go. You guys took a second to get ready? Good, let's do it. So you actually have about a few more minutes to get ready. So, Etzem Kidei Lasos Tarvad. So, the Mishnah at the very top of Daf Pei Aleph begins. Etzem Kidei Lasos Tarvad. So, you're chayav on Shabbos for bringing out a bone on Shabbos, enough if it's large enough to make a spoon. Rabbi Yehuda Omer K'dei lasos mimenu chaf. Rabbi Yehuda says you're chayav for taking out a bone if it's large enough to make a lock. Zchuches, glass. K'dei ligra bo rosh akarkar. So the karkar is this stick that you would use to some kind of rod that you would use on the loom in order to separate if you have the threads of the warp get kind of overlapping, so you'll use this stick to stick them between the threads and separate them. So if you want to sharpen this stick, so if you take out enough glass that would be useful for sharpening this stick, so then you would be chayav for that. Swar or evan, a pebble or a stone, kedei lizrog ba'of, it's large enough to throw at a bird. If you want to get a bird away from you, apparently they don't like when stones are thrown at them, so if you throw a stone at them, they'll move. Interesting. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, says Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, K'dei lizrok b'behema. If you have a stone or a pebble large enough to throw at an animal, then don't go out with it on Shabbos. Okay? Says the Gemara, L'meimer d'shura de Rabbi Yehuda nafish. No, just like we saw yesterday, or the day before. I think it was yesterday. So, is that to say that the size of Rabbi Yehuda is larger? Right? This is a question that's come up a few times. Right? That apparently the Gemara is assuming that Rabbi Yehuda's shear always is going to be smaller and more strict than the shear of the Chachamim. So, it would sound, however, like a lock is larger than a spoon. And Rabbi Yehuda is saying that you're only chayav if you take out a bone the size of a lock. So the Gemara wants to know, the Meimer, is that to say the shear of Rabbi Yehuda nafish, that Rabbi Yehuda's shear of a lock is larger than the Chacham's shear of a spoon? Hakaimelin the shear of Rabbana nafish, but we hold that the the size of the rabbis is always going to be larger. So Amar Ula chape posachas. So it says Ula, when Rabbi Yehuda is talking about a lock, he's not actually talking about the lock, he's talking about the teeth of the lock that are part of how the lock works. Holds whatever is locking mechanism in. So it's those teeth. If you take out bone large enough to make these teeth, so then you'll be chayav. And that is a smaller shear than a spoon. Taner Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, chape posachas, these teeth of a lock, tehorin, they do not become tameh, because they're pointless. They're not a kli. You can't do anything with simply these teeth if they're not connected to a lock. Literally just these little teeth, you can't really do much with. Kavan biposachas, however, once you've put these teeth into the lock, and now they are, part of this lock mechanism, well then, tamein, then they are mukhshel l'kabel tuma. What is in my eye? Some kind of hair. Did I get rid of it? Hope so. I guess we'll find out. No, one second, now it's on my nose. Okay, now maybe I got rid of it. Let's see. Yeah, I think maybe I got rid of it. Alright, we'll find out. So, where was I again? So, kvan beposachas tmein. So, once you put them into the lock, so then they are tameh because they are part of this lock now. And the lock is mukhshel l'kabel tuma, can become tameh. Fine. V'shel gal, however, if this is a lock, this lock that we're talking about that can become tameh is a lock for, let's say, a drawer or something movable. However, v'shel gal, if it's the lock of a gate, and a gate is, connected to the ground, So afal pisha chibron bedeles v'kva'an b'masmerim, even though you connected it to the door and nailed it in to horin shekol mechuber l'karka areu k'karka, because anything that is connected to the ground is considered like the ground, and therefore it won't be makabel tumah, because the karka is not makabel tumah. So there you go. If you have these teeth of a lock that are connected to a lock, and that is a lock for something like a drawer, so then these teeth are able to become tummy because they're part of this lock, and the lock is able to become tummy. However, if you have these teeth just kind of lying around on their own, then you can't really do much with just plain old lock teeth made out of bone. So they're not going to be makabel tumah. Now, if this is a lock that's for like a gate, and a gate is considered karka, it's considered ground because it's connected to the ground, so then it won't be makabel tumah. Zchuchis k'dei ligor bo. So we say enough glass to like sharpen this like stick that you use to separate the threads of the warp. Tana zchuchis k'dei liftzoa ba shnei nimin ka'achas. So we learn in the Brisa that zchuchis, which Rashi points out for us, is the same thing as zichuchis. That basically zichuchis is based on the root of zach, which means like pure and clear, like glass. And sichuchis is based on like soche, to see, because I guess you can use it like, let's say, as a mirror, right? I think mirror is like made out of glass or something, right? So that's why it would be maybe called sichuchis. Okay. Or maybe like other kind of uses for glass, like maybe like a magnifying glass that you use, or glasses, right? So I guess it has two purposes, for seeing and also for if you zichuchis would be from the lashon zach, of pure. So so we have a brisa that says that this glass would be large enough in order that you can cut two threads at once, right? And as the Mishnah had told us that on a loom, after you weave these fabrics, so then there might be threads that you want to remove. So if you have glass that is large enough to remove these threads, two threads at once, so then that you would be chayav for taking out on Shabbos. And I think the idea is that would be the same size as the glass that would be used for sharpening these loom warp separating thread stick things. Tzruar, o even k'dei lizog ba'of. Okay, a pebble or a stone that is large enough to throw at a bird. Rabbi Eliezer Chule, Amar Rabbi Yaakov, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yaakov the name of Rabbi Yochanan, V'hu Shemageshes Ba. So this is talking about an animal, and the animal has to be able to feel it. So if you throw like a little pebble that the animal won't even feel, so then you're not going to be chayav for taking out that pebble on Shabbos. V'chamashiro, how big is this pebble or stone that is large enough that an animal will feel it? Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Omer, Mishkol Asar Zuz, the weight of 10 zuz coins. Okay? Zunin. Alright, here we go. Bathroom stuff. Zunin. Al levei midrasha. So Zunin went to the Beis HaMedrash. Amar Lui said to them, Rabosai, my rabbis, Avonim shel Beis HaKisei shiurin b'chama. The stones that you can bring into a bathroom on Shabbos, how large are they? Amru lo, they said to him, Kazayis kagos uchebetza. You can take one stone that is the size of an olive, another stone that is the size of a nut, and another stone that is the size of an egg. That's what you're allowed to bring. And apparently that is how they would wipe themselves after going to the bathroom. First they would use like this smaller like stone, and then a middle-sized stone, and then a large stone. Apparently that was the accepted method. That would work really well, I guess. So Amar Lehu, so then, but he said to the rabbis, V'chi tortane yachnis, what, is he going to bring like a scale with him to the bathroom so he can like measure the size of the stones and weigh them and make sure like, he's got, everything is all set? Of course not. We need something sort of more actionable, more practical. So Nimnu V'gamu, so they sat and they thought and they said, Melo ayad, fine. Take whatever you can fit into one hand. Whether it's, the big ones, the small ones, whatever combinations, whatever can fit into one hand, you could take with you. Tani, we're learning a brisa. Rabbi Yossi Omer says, Rabbi Yossi, Kazayis Kegos Uchbeitza. So Rabbi Yossi says you could take one stone the size of an olive, another the size of a nut, and a third the size of a egg. it says here Reb Shimon, but there's a note that changes it to Rabbi Yishmael Reb Yossi Omer Mishum Aviv. Remember we had Rabbi Yishmael Reb Yossi saying in the name of his father recently. What did we say? His father was a tanner. No, or maybe it was rugs. Maybe he sold rugs or something. It was like something to do with like sitting on stuff, and like his father would like say, "Hey, bring over." I think maybe it was tanning. Maybe he would like tan hides, and then he would sell them. I think actually, and then sometimes he would say like, "Hey, bring over the rug," and they would sit on Shabbos. Anyways, so then I asked, like, I feel like Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi quotes his father a lot. Well, here's another example. Right, so Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi Omer Mishum Aviv Melo Ayad. So Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi actually quotes his father. It's interestingly, Rabbi Yossi had just said that it was Kazayis Kegos Uchubetza, but then his son seems to be quoting him as saying that it's Melo Ayad, which is whatever you can fit in your hand. So I don't know, maybe he changed his mind. That's at a later point. I don't know, or maybe it was just like sometimes we see like Shnei Tanai Alibe de whatever. Sometimes you can have like two different Tanaim quoting somebody. So maybe Rabbi Yossi said one thing. For Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi, maybe like our tradition of what Rabbi Yossi said is one thing, but Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Yossi quoted him as saying something else. I don't know. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbis taught, Gimel Avanim Kurzalos Mutulachnas Leves Akise. You can bring 3 sharp stones into the bathroom. Apparently, the sharp stones were better. They would do a better job wiping. I mean, I feel like we don't use stones so much for that. All right, whatever. Let's go weiter. How large are these sharp wiping stones? Reb Meir Omer ke'egos. So Meir says the size of a nut. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kebeitza. Rabbi Yehuda says the size of an egg. Okay. Amr Rafim bar Papa Amr Rav Chizda. K'machlokas kan kach machlokas be'esrig. That the same machlokas that we have here, where Reb Meir says the size of a nut and Rabbi Yehuda says the size of an egg. Well, guess what? It's the same size by a minimum size for an esrig. Reb Meir says it is the size of a nut, and Reb Yehuda says it's the size of an egg. So, okay. So the Gemara asks, we're saying 1 second. It's like just kind of a technical question. So like we're saying, okay, here's this machlokas by stones that you could take into the bathroom. Reb Meir says ke'egos, Reb Yehuda says kebeitza, and we're saying that. Oh, and just like there's machlokas here, so also by this other, by this other like random machlokas, by esrog, so it's the same machlokas. So the Gemara is asking a technical question. From that phraseology, it would sound like this is the more important sugya, and that is the sort of less important sugya that we're saying is similar to this more important sugya. But the Gemara says, but wait a second, this over here by the stones is a brisa, whereas by esrig it's actually a mishnah. So really what you should be saying is that just like there's a machlokas by that mishnah, by esrig, there's also this, tangential machlokas found in the brisa as well, between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. So that's what the Gemara says, right? One second, over there is the mishnah. Here is just a brisa. We should really make the main discussion over there by esrig. So elak machlokas be esrig kach machlokas kan. No, rather say it like this. Just like there's that machlokas by esrog that Reb Meir says it's the minimum size of an esrig is a nut, and Rabbi Yehuda says that the minimum size of an esrig is a right. Reb Meir says the minimum is a nut. Rabbi Yehuda says the minimum is a beitza. So too over here by these stones for that you can take with you to the bathroom on Shabbos. Reb Meir says the size of a nut. Rabbi Yehuda says the size of a egg. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, said Rabbi Yehuda, avaloes a pious. You can't take a pious, right? Meaning you could take certain stones with you to the bathroom. However, do not take a pious stone with you to the bathroom. My pious, what's pious? Amar Rabbi Zera, karshine bavliosa. So Rabbi Zera had gesagt that it is these like clods of earth from Bavel. So don't use those to take to the bathroom with you. Amar Rava, said the holy Rava. Also the mashmesh b'tzor b'Shabbos k'derech shemashmesh b'chol. Great. So says Rava, somebody who's having a hard time defecating, a hard time going to the bathroom. So what you would do is you would take one of these stones, I guess, that you take with you, and you just kind of rub it on the hole, on the opening, until I guess you could start going to the bathroom. So now Rava says also the mashmesh b'tzura b'Shabbos k'derech shemashmesh b'chol. You're not allowed to, use this stone to kind of, move around over there and just, I guess, somehow get yourself to go to the bathroom that way. So don't do it on Shabbos in the same way that, right, like you would do it during the week. So maskefler marzutra listaken. So Marzutra says, well, what else should you do? Keilu, should you just, it's dangerous if you don't go to the, if you have to go to the if you're not going to the bathroom, that's not good. Like, if you could take this stone and kind of use it to be able to get yourself to go to the bathroom, so why shouldn't you do that on Shabbos? What's the alternative? Just to like put yourself in danger and get sick? So the answer is, don't do it like you do it during the week. Rather, you should do it with some kind of a shinoi. Maybe instead of holding it this regular way, you hold it like between different fingers, whatever it might be. Just do it differently, and then it's only going to be asur midirabanan. And once already it's asur midirabanan, so then, because the issue was that it's a psik reisha, because what's going to happen is that when you're kind of taking the stone and applying it to the that area to get yourself to go to the bathroom, so then you're going to pull out whatever hairs there might be there. So that's the problem. However, if you do it with a shinui, so then it's no longer asur midoraisa, it's only going to be asur midorabanan, and therefore in a place of kavod brios, right, to go to the bathroom, or sakana, I guess in this case, they wouldn't make their gezerah, and it would be mutter since it's with a shinoi. Amar Rabbi Yanai, says Rabbi Yanai, im yesh makom kavua lebeis hakisei, okay, if you have a place that is fixed for a bathroom, milo hayad, well then you could fill up your hand with stones and take the stones to this beis hakisei kavua. Im lav, but if you're going to a bathroom that is not an official bathroom, you're just going to a random spot, so ke'achreya, so then you would just take achreya is like a compromise, let's say, or right. So we had 3 sizes of stones. We had the size of the olive, the size of the nut, and the size of the egg. So the middle size is what we're going for over here, the size of the nut. So if it's not a beis hakisei kavua, you could take a stone the size of a nut and take that with you. Good luck. Midocha kitana shabsamim, if you have a so medocha is a mortar. So we're not talking about the mortar is like, okay, if you have like a mortar and a pestle, so a mortar would be like the kli that you put whatever you want to pound into, and then the pestle is the thing you pound, the pounder thing. So the Gemara is saying that if you have a pestle, which is the pounder thing, so if you have a pestle that you would use to pound things, so medocha ktana shel b'samim, so a small pestle that you would use to pound spices. Some of Sheshes im yesh alea aid mutter. So if there's a witness on it, then you can use it to go to the bathroom. So what's a witness? A witness is that there is some identification, some leftovers to indicate that this is not its first time being used as a bathroom stone. So if you could look at it and say, oh, yeah, I see it's been used in the past for going to the bathroom, well then guess what? You're allowed to use it on Shabbos. So the interesting thing is that implies that if it doesn't have some kind of indication, then you wouldn't be allowed to use it on Shabbos. But apparently, I mean, what else are you going to use on Shabbos? And just a regular stone. So apparently that's a question that people ask on Rashi. I didn't really look at the answer so much, other than just look at it's a question. Apparently it has to do with like, well, since it's for like a pestle, then maybe it's like, more valuable. So therefore maybe it's not just, it's a different kind of muktzah. Whatever it is, says Rav Sheshes that if this is a stone that has been used before, so then you can use it. Meisvei, but 1 second. If anybody remembers, this is not our first time seeing this brisa. We saw this brisa in Shabbos, that there are 10 things that can bring you to hemorrhoids. And these are the 10 things. Somebody who eats leaves from reeds. Okay? Or leaves from grapes. Shoots from grapevines. That's like meat, like unsmooth meat of animals, so like tongue meat. Below melach, that has not been salted. V'shidro shadag, and the spine of a fish. V'dag maliach, and a salted fish, shalobisho kotzorko, that is not fully cooked. V'ashos hashimra yain, somebody who drinks the lees, or I guess sediments of wine. Somebody who wipes himself with limestone or with pottery shards. And here's the important part, or if he uses a stone that his friend used to wipe himself, don't recycle wiping stones. Even somebody who's tola atzma v'sakise, somebody who does some kind of interesting kind of squat in the bathroom. So what do we see? We see that if you reuse a wiping stone, you'll get hemorrhoids. So why is Rav Sheshes sort of suggesting that it's okay to use to reuse a wiping stone? What about the concern about hemorrhoids? So lo kasha, don't worry about it. Habilach habiyavish. It depends if we're looking for an indication that the stone is being used. What kind of indication is that? Probably that there's excrement that you can identify on it. So it depends. If the excrement is moist, well, stay away from it. You'll get hemorrhoids. Don't reuse moist wiping stones. However, if it's dried, then gesund hay. Okay. V'ba yisema. Or if you want, I'll say kan mitzarechad kan v'chan mi beis stadin. Okay. Or if you want, I'll say it depends. If this wiping stone was sort of used on both sides, its mamish already been used, there's no unused part of it, well then you can get hemorrhoids. But if it's only been used on like one side, just use the other. V'ba yisema. Or if you want, I will say hadidei hadachavre. A different reason is it depends. If he's the one who used it in the past, well then you can use it. If it's your friend who used it in the past, well then you might get hemorrhoids. Amar le Abaye le Rav Yosef, says Abaye to his Rebbe Rav Yosef, Yardu alei hagasham v'nitash teshumau. No, what if it rained and so now you had this wiping stone and theoretically you'd be able to use it on Shabbos, but then it rained and now you can't the remnants of your feces from last time is not as solid as it might be. So Amar le imhay rishuma nikar mutar. So Rav Yosef says, well, if you can still kind of tell that it had been used in the past, so you'd be able to recycle it, like Rav Sheshes is saying. Zakt, the Gemara, Ba'minei Rabba bar Rav Shila Mei Rav Chizda. So Rabba bar Rav Shila asked from Rav Chizda, Mau lehalosam acharav legag. Okay, let's say you're going to the bathroom on your roof. Okay, Mau lehalosam acharav legag. Can you take these stones with you up to the roof, or is that considered tircha? Right? The Chachamim said, the Rabbanan said, we don't want you to do tircha on Shabbos. We don't want you to do extra burdens, and therefore, would taking these stones up to your roof with you be considered an extra burden that would not be allowed? So Amar Le, so Rav Chizda responded to Rabba bar Rav Shila, Gadol kavod abrios shedocha es lo saisa shebetorah. That great is kavod abrios, is the honor of people that it pushes off a mitzvahs lo taseh in the Torah. What does that mean? There is a mitzvahs lo taseh. This actually came up in Gemara Brachos as well, on Daf Yud Tes Amud Aleph. Right, that kavod abrios is so great that it pushes off a lo taseh in the Torah. What's this lo taseh? So the pasuk says, lo sasur min hadavar sheyagidu lecha yamin usmol. That do not sway from what the rabbis tell you, either left or right. Meaning whatever the rabbis tell you to do. So it has a status of midoraisa. However, built in to the decrees of the rabbis is always that their decrees are waived in the context of kavod abrios. If it has to deal with the respect, the honor of human dignity, well then they do not apply their gezeros. So gadol kavod abrios is so great that it sort of pushes off shedoche, pushes off a lo ta'aseh, the pasuk that we have in the Torah, a mitzvah lo taseh, do not violate the dinim derabanan, but kavod abrios always will override din derabanan. Not because it's more important than dinim derabanan, but just that the rabbanan sort of baked into their decrees that they are not going to make their decrees if it sort of interferes with kavod abrios. So therefore, Rav Chizda is saying that, look, if you're going to the bathroom and you're saying, look, can I bring up the stones to wipe myself because I'm concerned that maybe it's a tircha, the rabbanan didn't make their gezerah about tircha when it comes to kavod abrios, which is a person should be able to clean himself in the bathroom. Weiter. Yasid Meremer v'kamer la hashmaita. So Meremer was sitting and he was saying this teaching of Rav Chizda, right, that you could bring up these stones to the bathroom even if it's on your roof and it's a tircha, because gadol kavod abrios shedoches lo saisa shebetorah. Eis ve'Ravina l'Meremar. But Ravina asked the kasha on Meremar. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, says the holy Rabbi Eliezer, Notel Adam Kesam Mishalefanav Lachtos Bo Shinav. A person is allowed to, if he was just eating and he needs a toothpick, so he could just find Epis wood chip that's in front of him, and he can use it as a toothpick. Ki'ilu, he didn't set it aside before Shabbos, he just finds whatever he could find. V'chachamim omrim, lo yitol ela min ha'evus shel behema, whereas the chachamim say no, you can't simply just take any toothpick, it's muksa. But you can go into the trough of the animals, like where the animals have their food, and take episode wood chip from there, because anything over there is set aside from before Shabbos. So one second. So that's the kasha. So we see that if you have, let's say, meat stuck in your teeth, so it's covered abrios, it's embarrassing. Nobody likes when they have food stuck in their teeth. So he wants to use some kind of a toothpick to remove the food from his teeth. So that should be covered abrios, and yet the Chachamim are saying it doesn't violate the din d'Rabbanan of muktzah. It doesn't override the din or push off the din d'Rabbanan of muktzah. So therefore, why over here should taking stones to go up to the bathroom in a situation of covered abrios push off the din d'Rabbanan of tircha? So so there's a difference. In the other case, a person knows in advance where he's going to be eating. And because he knows where he's going to be eating, he really should have set aside toothpicks. However, over here, a person can't always know where he's going to be going to the bathroom throughout the day. I mean, it depends where he is, or it depends if he has to go to the bathroom. There's different factors over there. So you can't know in advance where to always be preparing stones. And therefore, you could always take stones with you, even if it's an extra tircha. Let's go weiter, friends. Rav Huna, says the holy Rav Huna, Asur lefanos b'sadeh b'sdeinir b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to defecate in a freshly plowed field on Shabbos. My time, how come? If the concern as well, because when you step on this freshly plowed field, that the dirt is soft, well, you're going to compact the dirt, and it's going to be ki'ilu hefsed. It's going to cause damage to the field. Not like real damage, but the point being, he just plowed his field so that the dirt is soft, and now you're going to undo that. So, but afilu b'chol nami, if that's the concern, then why is it specific to Shabbos? Ki'ilu, you shouldn't be doing it during the week either. The guy just plowed his field, don't kind of ruin it. So ve'elu mishum asavim. Okay, so maybe the issue therefore, maybe what he's saying is that, in the field, some of the stones in the field might have like grass, like moss growing on them, because a freshly plowed field is going to have moisture in the dirt, and that will cause like moss and grass to grow on the stone. And then when you use the stone to wipe with, it's going to remove the grass from the stone, and maybe that's the concern. But one second, didn't Reish Lakish say that a stone that has grass on it, it's no problem to wipe with it, and therefore that's not a concern on Shabbos? But if somebody deliberately just removes this grass that's growing on the stone from it, then you'd be chayav a korban chatash for tolesh. However, I assume it's tolesh. But over here, but it's not an issue when it comes to if you can wipe with that stone. So again, what's the issue of Rav Huna with going to the bathroom in a freshly plowed field? So ella dumanakad me'ilai v'shadil satoi. Okay, rather what the concern is that maybe you'll take a stone from a higher part of the field and throw it into like a hole in the field. Umechayev mishum derabba, and you'll be chayev for what Rabbah says, which is the Amarabba haisulo guma v'timima. If you had a hole and you filled it in, so if it's bebayis, if it's in your house, chayev mishum bona, you'll be chayev for bona, for like building your floor. Basada chayev mishum choresh, whereas if this hole that you're filling in is in the field, you'll be chayev for choresh. Therefore, that is our concern. That if you are in the field, you might take a stone and throw it into a hole, and be chayev for choresh. There you go. Gufa, we said earlier, Reish Lakish, So said Reish Lakish that a rock that grass grew on it, you're allowed to wipe yourself with it. And yet, if somebody were to deliberately remove whatever grass or moss is growing on it, you'd be chayav a korban chatas. Now, Amar of Papi says of Papi Shmam Nomid Reish Lakish. So what do we learn from Reish Lakish? Hai parpisa shari l'taltule. So a parpisa is in atzitz nakuv, which is a planter, a pot that has holes in the bottom. So therefore, so you have sort of the dirt and the plant in the pot, but there are holes in the bottom so that it can get like nutrients and certain benefits from resting on the ground. And so what Rav Papi wants to argue is we see that according to Reish Lakish, you could take this rock and you can wipe with it even though there is grass growing on it. So now, whatever grass is growing on it is going to be getting moisture and certain benefits from the ground, and we're saying it's okay, you could still disconnect it from the ground, and it's not considered tolesh, it's not considered disconnecting from the ground, so that implies that the same thing would apply to an atzitz nakuv, to a pot that has holes on the bottom. I should be able to pick it up and move it on Shabbos, and it wouldn't be considered tolesh, disconnecting something from the ground. So, Maskifla Rav Kahana asked the kasha and Rav Papi, Im amru l'tzorech, yomu shlo l'tzorech. 1 second. If they say that you're allowed to pick up a stone in order to wipe yourself, there's a need for that. So that is okay. But you can't just pick up and move around plants, atzitz nakuv, a pot that has holes in it just for fun. Okay? Fine. Amr Abaye, says Abaye, parpisa, this pot that has holes in the bottom, ho'il v'asal liyadan lema be'milsa. Well, since already we're talking about these pots with holes in the bottom, may as well discuss them a little more. If you had a pot with a plant with holes in the bottom and it was resting on the ground, and you pick it off the ground and you rest it on pegs, you'll be chayiv for tolesh, for disconnecting something from the ground. If it was on pegs, and then you put it down onto the ground, you're going to be chayiv for planting. And as Rashi points out, we're not talking about chayiv a korban chatas, because if it was also midoraisa, then you wouldn't be allowed to, pick up the stone that has grass on it from the ground and wipe with it. Rather, we must be talking about chayiv midirabanan. And that is why, when it comes to wiping with it, it's covered abrios, which is doche this iser d'rabanan. Rabbi Yochanan, says the holy Rabbi Yochanan, also the kaneach becheres b'Shabbos. You're not allowed to wipe yourself with pottery on Shabbos, pottery shards. My timer, how come? Mishum sakana. Here we're saying, well, because it's dangerous, you can cut yourself. Well, afilu b'chol nami. Well, then what's specific about Shabbos? Even during the week, it wouldn't be allowed. Ve'ela mishum kshafim. We're worried about witchcraft. Apparently, there was people who knew how to make spells, could make spells on pottery that was used for going to the bathroom. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is saying, don't use these pottery shards on Shabbos because we're concerned about witchcraft. But afilu b'chol nami, lo. Well, if the concern was about witchcraft, well, what's specific to Shabbos? It should also be an issue during the week. Ve'ela mishum hasharas nimin. Okay, well, maybe the point is that this pottery will remove hairs when you are using it. So, and that's the issue on Shabbos. So, davar she'ein miskavenu. Yeah, but that would be a davar she'einu miskaven. Maybe it will remove hairs, maybe it won't remove hairs, and therefore it's davar she'einu miskaven, and that would be mutter. So again, how come Rabbi Yochanan is saying not to use pottery to wipe yourself with on Shabbos? So, Amalu Rav Nasan bar Oshaya, said Rav Nasan bar Oshaya to them, Gavarabba Amar Milsa, Nema Bataima, a great person, Rabbi Yochanan said something, let's make it make sense. Because the assumption is that it does make sense, so let's show why it makes sense. So Lomi Ba'ya B'chol Da'asr Ava B'Shab, right? So meaning, okay. So the point is that certainly during the week you would not be allowed to use this pottery, right? Because you have stones that you can use. So just use stones. Avoid the issue of sakana. Avoid the issue of kshafim. Just use a stone. So certainly on Shabbos, certainly during the week, you should not use pottery. Use a stone. Aval b'Shabbos. But what about on Shabbos? Stones are muktzah. I might think that I might think that while stones are muktzah, pottery, clay, whatever, like whatever, cheres, pottery, I guess, you can consider it to be a kli, a vessel, and therefore maybe it's not muktzah. And if I had to choose between using a rock, which is a stone, which is muktzah, or pottery, which is not muktzah, maybe I should use taka the pottery. Kamash Malan. So Rabbi Yochanan is teaching us that no, don't use the pottery, because of, let's say, witchcraft concerns or sakana concerns. Okay. Rava Masnila Mishum Asharas Niman. Now Rava wanted to explain Rabbi Yochanan as saying that not to use pottery because we're concerned that you are going to cut some hairs while you are using it. So V'kashale Rabbi Yochanan. However, Rava hit kind of a stone wall when he said that the issue was removing hairs, because now by saying, if you do say that Rabbi Yochanan was concerned about removing hairs, well then he's going to be arguing on himself. How come? Because mi amar Rabbi Yochanan asur lekaneach b'cheres b'Shabbos. Because would Rabbi Yochanan really say that you would not be allowed to use shards of pottery to wipe yourself on Shabbos out of concern that you remove hairs? Alma davar shein miskaven asur. But that would mean that davar shein miskaven, because you won't necessarily remove hairs. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. So if he says that it's asur to use pottery shards out of concern that you might remove hairs, well then that implies that davar shein miskaven is asur. But ve'amar Rabbi Yochanan halacha k'stam mishnah. We've seen this before. Didn't Rabbi Yochanan say that the halacha is like a stam mishnah, that whenever you have a plain mishnah that is not attributed to any one teacher, the halacha is always going to be like that mishnah? Utnanim, we have a mishnah that says nazir, a person who vowed the vow of a nazir, and one of the implications of that is that he's not allowed to cut his hair. So chofef mefasbes, he's allowed to take shampoo and scrub it in his hair and separate hairs, and you can basically rub shampoo into his hair. Have a low soik, but you can't comb his hair, because combing will definitely remove hairs. But just scrubbing shampoo into your hair is okay. And if hair comes out, but it's a davar shein miskaven new. So we see that Rabbi Yochanan holds that davar shein miskaven is mutter. So how could Rava explain Rabbi Yochanan is saying that you can't wipe yourself with a pottery shard because of it might take out hairs, but that would only be davar shein miskaven, and that would be mutter. So ela machvarta kedu Rav Nosson bar Oshai. Rather, it makes sense, like Rav Nosson bar Oshai, that the concern is that maybe I would have thought better to use pottery on Shabbos because it's not muktzah. Kamash malan Rabbi Yochanan, not to use it. Weiter, friends. Mike Shafim knew what's this witchcraft that we're concerned about? What if you use pottery to wipe yourself, you might be taken by some spell? Like what is the dealio? Kihadu Rav Chizda v'Rabba bar Rafuna. So it's like Rav Chizda and Rabba bar Rafuna. Havuka azle ba'arava. They were traveling on a boat. Amru ahima tronisa, a certain noblewoman, suggested to them, Osvan badaichu, maybe I can come with you. So v'lo osvua, and they didn't have her come with them. They said, no, we're not interested. Amra ihi milsa asarta la'arba. So she made some spell, and she made the boat stuck so that it couldn't move anywhere. They said, Amru inu milsa sharyuha. So they did some kind of spell and undid her spell. Amr lehu, and she said to them, Ma yavid lehu, what am I going to do with you guys? Delo mekanech lu b'chaspa, because you guys don't wipe yourselves with pottery. V'lo kati lehu kina amanaychu, you don't kill lice on your clothing. V'lo shalaf lehu yarka v'achil lehu mikishidas your gina'a, and you don't remove vegetables from the bundles that the farmers make and just eat the vegetables from, you don't just chop the vegetables from the bundle and eat them. Rather, you first undo the bundle and then eat them. So somehow she knew that. So what do we see from there? That if the rabbis were to wipe with pottery, she would be able to curse them. So there you go. Cool, friends. That was Daf Ayin Aleph of Masechta Shabbos, and I'll tell you, I didn't really write too many notes I didn't write any notes for I had to do a recap because maybe I could have. I don't know, but I didn't. So we spoke more about taking stuff out on Shabbos, like bone and glass and things like that, and then we just kind of jumped into all sorts of taking stones and stuff out to the bathroom. What size can you take them out? Right? We talked about the size of a olive, a nut, and an egg. Then we had that was the opinion of Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Yossi said, actually, however much you could fit in your hand. We had the machlokas between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Meir said it's the size of a nut. Rabbi Yehuda says that it's the size of an egg. And we say that that's actually the same machlokas also when it comes to esrig. And then we just had all sorts of, what stones can you use, what stones can't you use, not to go to the bathroom in a freshly plowed field, not to use pottery to wipe yourself with. So one notable, interesting thing was gadol kvod habrio shedoches losais shebetorah. Right, we said that you can bring up stones to your roof if you're going to go to the bathroom there, and we're not concerned about tirchi yisera because whenever it comes to kavod habrios, the chachamim sort of suspend whatever dinim d'Rabbanan they made. So in this case, the din d'Rabbanan of tirchi yisera is suspended out of respect for kavod habrios. Okay, friends, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you enjoy your day. I'll see you tomorrow.